phone slammed hard against the edge of the concrete, followed by a silence so chilling it froze the air. I, Madison Clarke, a 29-year-old investigative journalist, lay motionless under the blazing sun, my legs numb and unresponsive. While I gasped in panic, whispering, "I can't move," my brother, Tyler Clarke, burst out laughing. Always so dramatic, just like old times. Beside him, my father, Robert, barked coldly, "Get up, you're embarrassing us in front of everyone." My mother, Patricia, lowered her head and muttered, "Don't ruin your brother's birthday party." To all of them, my real pain was nothing more than a performance. But why would one fall in a wealthy, prestigious family in Greenwich, Connecticut, spiral into an event that pulled in the police, forced lawyers to gather evidence, and shattered the Clarke family's reputation? This wasn't just an accident. It was the start of a fight for survival, where I had to use the truth itself to bring down those who denied my suffering my whole life. This story doesn't just expose the cruelty of family, it reveals how justice forced them to pay. You may think you've heard hundreds of revenge stories, but trust me, nothing comes close to this. And what you're about to witness is only the beginning. My name is Madison Clarke. From the outside, my life looked picture perfect. A powerful family in Greenwich, Connecticut, a mansion with a gleaming white fence, a carefully manicured lawn, and a brand new pool deck that shined like glass. But inside those pristine white walls was a suffocating world where everything was measured by appearances and reputation. From a young age, I knew I wasn't like the rest of my family. I was sensitive, I asked questions, and I dared to speak the truth. I became an investigative journalist because of that. Yet in my own home, the truth was never welcome. My father, Robert Clarke, was a successful businessman, always in a gray suit with a polished Rolex flashing on his wrist. He believed emotions made people weak. He often told me whenever I cried, "Madison, toughen up, don't turn yourself into a joke." My mother, Patricia, appeared gentle on the surface but lived in constant fear of losing the image of a perfect family. To her, everything had to stay inside the house. And then there was Tyler, my brother, 3 years older. Tyler was the family star, the golden child my parents endlessly bragged about. He played sports, had crowds of friends, and no matter how much trouble he caused, he was always protected. When I was 10, I still remember Tyler shoving me off my bike, my knees bleeding. I ran to Dad for help. He just looked at me and said, "Tyler would never do that. You need to take responsibility for your own clumsiness." That sentence carved a permanent rule into my memory. In the Clarke household, image always outweighed truth. And if truth threatened that image, it would be buried. I called it the Clarke family's iron law. "Sweetheart, don't tell anyone about this," Mom would whisper whenever I wanted to share how Tyler teased me. "People will think our family isn't happy. Do you want your father to lose face?" She had a habit of clutching her pearl necklace whenever she lied. I still remember the cold touch of those pearls as she hugged me, though her words always pushed me further away. I grew up under constant comparison. Tyler's birthday gifts were expensive model cars, while mine was a notebook with the reminder, "Learn to write your feelings instead of showing them." Maybe that's why I became someone who documented everything, who observed and told stories. My small room overflowed with journals and file clips. Each one was proof that I wasn't imagining things, that I wasn't being overly dramatic, like they said. At 16, I won an award in a school writing contest. Excited, I rushed home to show Dad. He waved me off. "Good, but don't think those papers matter. Learn to do something useful, like your brother." Tyler, fresh off winning a basketball tournament, was celebrated like a hero. I stood there, holding my certificate, realizing it felt no more valuable than a blank page. The tension in our family only grew. When I left for New York to study journalism, I thought I was finally free. I rented a tiny apartment with a window overlooking the street. On my desk sat the old lamp I brought from home. Its warm yellow glow became my safe space, where I wrote my first investigative pieces. I believed that leaving Greenwich meant safety, but every holiday, every call from Mom, dragged me back. "Madison, you need to come home. Family is family. Tyler misses you," she always said, though I knew Tyler couldn't care less. I became a journalist to fight against my family's rule. I believed truth must be told, no matter how ugly. The irony was, inside my own family, I was the one forced to stay silent. And every time I returned, I felt like the 10-year-old again, labeled troublesome and inconvenient. One memory stands out before everything collapsed. Mom bought me an expensive blue dress to wear for a family dinner. I chose jeans and a white blouse instead. Patricia looked me over and shook her head. "What will people think of our family? Don't let them see you like this." I replied, "I want them to see me for who I am." Her hand clutched her pearls tighter, her silence filled with anger. Tyler was different. The older he grew, the bolder he became. Parties, drinking, showing off extravagant gifts. Yet, in our parents' eyes, he remained flawless. I once told Mom, he needs to take responsibility for his actions. She cut me off. "Don't stir trouble. Tyler is the pride of this family. You should learn to stay quiet." That silence fed his arrogance. He knew he'd always be forgiven. He knew I'd always take the blame. And he believed even the cruelest prank would be excused, as long as the family's perfect image was preserved. I thought I had learned to endure. I learned to breathe deeply, to take notes, to heal myself through words. I thought I could handle a few more family gatherings. But I didn't realize Tyler's 32nd birthday would be the day the Clarke family imploded. And something strange was already waiting the moment I stepped back into that mansion. Tyler Clarke's birthday party that night was staged more like a social performance than a family gathering. As I walked in, loud music thundered across the backyard, champagne flutes sparkled under the lights. My father, Robert, stood by the brand-new grill, crisp white shirt neatly tucked in, Rolex gleaming. Patricia, my mother, floated between guests, her eyes darting to my jeans and blue blouse before freezing with a forced smile. "Couldn't you have worn a dress, Madison?" she whispered. I just gave a thin smile, reminding myself to breathe deeply. Tyler, dressed in a Ralph Lauren polo, held court in the center of his circle of friends. He clutched a beer, bragging about his new boat Robert promised would arrive that weekend. When he spotted me, he lifted his hand as if I were an unwilling participant in his show. "Look who finally showed up, little sis. Don't ruin this party, okay?" he laughed, his friends laughing along with him. I swallowed my anger, trying to avoid his gaze. But Tyler, as always, couldn't stop. "Remember when Madison pretended to be hurt just because she slipped on the stairs? She cried like she'd broken her bones," he sneered. Laughter erupted. A few eyes fell on me with pity. My face burned hot, fists clenched. I wanted to leave, but pride kept my back straight. "I wasn't pretending, Tyler, and you know it," I said firmly. He shrugged, feigning innocence. "Oh, sorry. I forgot you always love being the center of attention." I strode toward the sliding glass doors, intent on grabbing my bag and escaping the suffocating scene. But as soon as my flats touched the new deck, I felt something wrong. The wood gleamed, slick beyond normal. I tried to steady myself, but my foot slipped. For a split second, I caught Tyler's gaze and those of his friends, watching with an odd anticipation. My body gave way. I fell backwards, my spine and head slamming hard against the pool's concrete edge. The crack echoed, silencing the crowd. A lightning bolt of pain shot down my back, then morphed into terrifying emptiness. My mouth opened, gasping. I can't feel my legs." I scanned the faces around me, praying someone would help. Tyler stood there smirking. "Oh, here goes Madison acting again. What's the performance this time?" His friends burst into laughter, some pulling out phones to record. Robert marched over, scowling. "Get up now, Madison. You're humiliating us in front of everyone." I strained, tried to lift my legs. Nothing. Just a void. Tears spilled as I begged, "I can't move. Please, I need a doctor." Patricia knelt beside me, but instead of comfort, she hissed in my ear, "Don't ruin your brother's party. People are watching." Her voice shook, not with care but with fear of scandal. Hopelessness crushed me. My heart pounded, breath ragged. I shouted, "Someone, please, call 911. No one moved. Then suddenly a young woman pushed through the crowd, eyes sharp and steady. "I'm a doctor. Nobody touches her. Call emergency services now," she commanded. Later, I'd learn her name was Rachel Patel, a guest I had never met. Her words cut through the haze like a lifeline. I trembled, clutching Rachel's hand. "Please believe me. I can't feel anything below my waist." She nodded, voice firm. "I believe you. And we need to act immediately." Right then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text lit up the screen, from an old friend who'd once warned me. "Evidence, Text message, 6:42 p.m. Madison, watch out for Tyler. He bragged to his buddies that he's going to teach you a lesson at tonight's party. The words drained the blood from my body. The warning had come true in the cruelest way. I wanted to scream that everyone was blind, that the truth was staring them in the face. But the searing pain in my spine pulled me toward darkness. What no one realized then was this. Tyler's prank wasn't just a prank. It had already changed my life forever. But worse was coming. The music in the backyard kept blaring, but now it sounded like mockery, pounding against my ears while I lay motionless on the slick deck. I tried to breathe, to cling to consciousness, but each passing second felt like a new trial. Instead of hands reaching down to lift me, I was met with contempt and cold indifference from the very people who were supposed to protect me. One by one, small humiliations piled on top of the pain, each cutting deeper than the last. Robert stepped forward, eyes burning with irritation as he looked down at me, sprawled across the deck, my lips still crying out for help. He crossed his arms, his voice sharp and deliberate. "Madison, get up. You're making a fool of yourself in front of everyone. This deck is brand new. There's no way it's slippery. Don't embarrass yourself." For a moment, the crowd fell silent. Then whispers began rippling through the guests. I felt the blood drain from my face. The agony in my back and head was unbearable, but worse was the frigid glare from my own father. "I can't move," I screamed. "I'm seriously hurt." But Robert only shook his head in disgust. The guests glanced at one another, many nodding as if his words outweighed mine. In that instant, I wasn't a daughter, wasn't even a victim. I was a liar in the middle of my own family. Then Patricia rushed over, dropping to her knees beside me. For a second, I thought she might finally believe me. Instead, she leaned in, whispering frantically, "Don't ruin your brother's party, Madison. Everyone's watching. You need to sit up, smile, and say you're fine." Tears blurred my vision. "Mom, I can't feel anything below my waist. I need to go to the hospital. If you don't help me, I might die." Her hand went to the pearl necklace at her throat, twisting it nervously like she always did when lying, but she still shook her head. "What will people think of us? Do you want everyone to believe the Clarkes have a crippled daughter at a birthday party? No, we can't let that happen." The last shred of hope I held in my mother collapsed. To her, the family's image mattered more than my life. A few guests close enough to overhear began murmuring, but none stepped forward. I felt utterly disposable, abandoned in my own home. Tyler swaggered closer, beer still in hand, his mouth twisted in a smirk. "Look at you, our little reporter trying to spin another tragic story. Madison, you really know how to draw attention." One of his friends raised a phone, filming my helpless body. "Stop recording," I croaked, my voice raw. "I need an ambulance, not your laughs." But they only roared louder, others pulling out their phones, capturing me from different angles. A voice in the crowd muttered, "She's drunk." Same old act. I tried dragging myself toward the phone aimed at me, but my arms trembled uselessly. Within minutes, I heard a notification ping from someone's device. A short clip of me screaming had already been shared in their group chat. I glimpsed the screen as it passed by, dozens of laughing emojis flashing. Evidence, group chat screenshot 7:02 p.m. "Look at Madison acting again. She never changes." The truth of my suffering had been reduced to entertainment, spreading like wildfire inside my brother's party. Each humiliation sliced deeper than the fall itself. I was cast as a liar, denied by my mother, turned into a punchline by my brother. The stares around me weren't filled with concern. They dripped with judgment and scorn. My chest tightened, tears soaking my face. "I swear, I can't move my legs. Why won't anyone believe me?" My cries were swallowed by the clink of glasses, the muted chuckles, the rustling of leaves overhead. In that moment, I knew. I was completely alone, powerless, stripped of any support. Tyler drifted back to his group, whispering something that set them all laughing again. One of them sauntered toward the pool, pretending to push me in. Tyler bent over, laughing uncontrollably. "Maybe that fall wasn't enough of a lesson. Want to make this a bigger show, Madison?" His smile wasn't a joke anymore. It was raw cruelty, plain as day. My body trembled with fear. I had reached my breaking point. But Tyler was ready to push even further. When Tyler stood over me, his grin shifted from smug to sinister. The golden pool lights reflected off his face, making his eyes glitter as though he was savoring every second of my helplessness. "Did you really think this time would be different, Madison?" he whispered, just loud enough for his friends to hear. "In this house, you've always been the liar, and tonight, you'll be the joke again." The crowd erupted with laughter. Pain tore through my back, threatening to knock me unconscious, but rage kept me awake. I stretched out a trembling hand, begging, "Tyler, stop. I can't feel my legs. This isn't a game." Then a colder voice than the night air cut in. Robert, my father, strode forward, a glass of red wine in hand. He clamped a heavy hand on Tyler's shoulder and fixed his glare on me. "Enough. Madison, get up and end this charade. You're destroying the family's image." My tears blurred everything. "I can't. I need a hospital." Robert's jaw clenched. He turned to the guests, voice ironclad. "Forgive the interruption. My daughter is overly sensitive, likely just faint from the heat." Each word landed like a command, forcing everyone to believe I was performing. In that instant, the truth crashed over me. This wasn't just Tyler's cruelty. Robert was the architect. He had built the iron law of the Clarke family, image over truth. Tyler was simply the product of it, granted immunity from consequences since birth. I remembered being 12, locked in the basement by Tyler during a storm. When I ran up sobbing, Robert didn't punish him. He stared into my eyes and said, "This family doesn't need dramatic stories. You'll make people think badly of us." Those words haunted me then, and tonight they replayed in real time. Tyler wasn't acting alone. He was just exploiting the immunity my parents had always gifted him. Every cruel prank, every reckless stunt, excused, as long as the Clarke reputation remained untouched. Rachel Patel, the lone doctor who had intervened, still kept a protective circle around me. "She has signs of a spinal injury," Rachel announced. "If she's not treated immediately, the damage could be permanent. Call 911 now." But Patricia cut in quickly, her face pale, voice sharp. "No one calls. Rachel, you don't understand. Our family will handle this." Rachel fired back. "You're gambling with your daughter's life?" But Patricia turned to the crowd, her tone suddenly sugary. "Please, continue enjoying yourselves. We'll take care of Madison." Her words were the final knife. I scanned the guests. Not a single phone lifted. No one stepped closer. A few muttered I'd probably had too much to drink. Mocking laughter still peppered the air. Defeat pressed down on me. My vision dimmed. I thought, if no one believes me, I'll die right here. It felt like a false ending, as if I had lost everything, no strength left to fight back. Then, a careless accident cracked the facade. A guest fumbled their phone, the screen lighting up on the deck. Before they snatched it back, I caught the subject line of an email forward. "Evidence. Forwarded email 4:09 p.m. Tyler said tonight he's going to teach Madison a lesson. Keep your cameras ready. It'll be fun." My chest tightened. This wasn't spontaneous humiliation. It was premeditated. Tyler had bragged hours earlier, setting it up as entertainment, and my parents, with their silence, had become accomplices. I lay there, frozen, my spirit plummeting, my body wouldn't respond, my hope draining away. Rage boiled with despair. This wasn't betrayal by one cruel sibling, it was an entire system, cultivated by Robert and Patricia for years. Tyler the golden child, me the scapegoat. Through the haze I heard Robert murmur to Patricia, "Keep this quiet. If anyone asks, say she tripped." Patricia nodded, clutching her pearls tighter. I closed my eyes, not only from pain, but because I couldn't stand another second of my mother's indifference. For a moment, I thought I might surrender, except that no one would ever stand beside me. But then, in the darkness, a spark flared. If image was everything to them, then that was their weakness. The Clarke iron law, image above truth, could become the very blade to turn against them. I opened my eyes, staring at the slate blue sky overhead. My breath rattled, but clarity began forming. I wouldn't let this story be buried. If they wanted to preserve appearances at all costs, I would turn their image into evidence against them. For the first time that night, survival wasn't my only thought. I was thinking about revenge. And it would begin with the iron law my family had worshipped all my life. Lying in a hospital bed at Yale, New Haven, I knew my life would never return to what it once was. But instead of drowning in despair, my mind turned sharp, calculating. I had spent too many years in the shadow of the Clarke family, forced into silence to preserve their image. Now that very obsession with appearances would become the weapon I used against them. I built my plan around 4 steps: collect, align, gamble, and edge. Collect, gathering evidence. The first task was to prove this wasn't an accident. Thankfully, I wasn't alone. Rachel Patel, the doctor who had stepped through the crowd and believed me from the beginning, visited me in the hospital. Madison, I filed a full report with the EMTs, she said. There was oil on that deck. They sampled it and photographed everything. I squeezed her hand, feeling a flicker of hope. Not long after, Sarah Mitchell, the EMT lead, arrived. She showed me her notes. Paralysis from the waist down, head trauma, and most crucially, preliminary tests confirming the slick coating wasn't natural. We also recorded Tyler's admission, Sarah explained. Even if he laughed it off, it's on file. Evidence. EMT report 9:47 p.m. Surface coated with deck oil. Patient indicates immediate paralysis. Witness confirms prank admission. These documents were the first bricks of my case. But to bring the Clarke name down, I needed more. Witnesses, a clear timeline, and the videos Tyler's friends had recorded. That's when Michael Greenberg, a civil attorney recommended by ADA Laura Jensen, entered the picture. Michael's tone was confident. You have a strong case, but to win, we need every piece of the puzzle. Align, building alliances. On my own, I could never fight Robert Clarke's wealth and influence. I needed allies willing to risk their names beside mine. Rachel and Sarah both agreed to testify. Dr. Elena Martinez, my neurosurgeon, promised to provide medical testimony, stating outright that the delay in calling for help worsened my injuries. ADA Laura Jensen began pursuing criminal charges, targeting Tyler for reckless endangerment and Robert and Patricia for criminal negligence. In rehab, David Ross, my physical therapist, coached me with unrelenting optimism. Every step you take, Madison, isn't just therapy. It's proof they were wrong to leave you lying there. Tara Hill, another SCI patient, offered both legal insight and solidarity. They'll twist the story, she warned. But if you stand firm, you won't stand alone. You'll have us. And then there was Thomas Reed, the rehabilitation counselor whose quiet encouragement steadied me when the nights felt longest. You've lived your whole life in denial, he told me. Now's your chance to reclaim your voice. With him, Align wasn't just strategy, it was strength. Gamble? Going public. The riskiest step was next, telling the world. As a journalist, I understood the raw power of public opinion. But once the truth went out, there would be no taking it back. I told Michael, if image is their shield, then image is our weapon. When the public sees the truth, Robert and Patricia won't be able to hide. Michael nodded but warned me, this is a gamble. They'll come for you. They'll say you're after money or attention. I accepted the risk. Under a pseudonym, I wrote a piece for a trusted colleague. I described the fall, Tyler's smirk, Robert's dismissive words, Patricia's whispers. I ended with one line. In the Clarke family, image has always mattered more than truth. But only truth can expose them. The article spread like fire. My phone exploded with calls from reporters. Robert himself rang me, his voice a growl. You're destroying everything. You'll regret this. I didn't answer. I hung up. Edge, the hidden card. When the spotlight turned on the Clarkes, I knew the final blow had to be decisive. I held back one piece of evidence, my ace in the hole. It was something no one had seen yet, something undeniable. And I wouldn't reveal it until the moment Robert and Patricia thought they had regained control. Only then would it crush them completely. But I also knew the dangers. Robert's connections ran deep in politics and business. With a single call, he could bribe or intimidate witnesses. Patricia knew how to manipulate the media. I could already imagine her crying on TV, painting me as unstable, the daughter who made up lies for sympathy. Worse, my body was fragile. Any complication could derail months of preparation. If I failed, I wouldn't just lose my case, I would lose my career, branded forever as the daughter who faked a tragedy for money. I believed I had a head start. Collect, Align, and Gamble had built a strong foundation. But then, one night, Michael called. His voice was tight with urgency. Madison, we've got a problem. The original guest video, the clearest footage of the fall, it's gone, wiped from phones and cloud backups. Someone erased everything. The blood drained from my face. If those videos were gone, so was my most visible proof. My hands shook as I clutched the phone. Someone was already working against me, erasing the truth in the shadows. And with that, I realized, my revenge plan, carefully built step by step, was under siege before it had even begun. I had spent months preparing this plan, but when the time for action came, my heart still hammered in my chest as if it might burst. This was more than a legal battle. It was a confrontation with my past, with the family that had buried me in silence. I followed the sequence I had laid out. Collect, align, gamble, expose, enforce, litigate, restore. Step 1. Collect. Building the case. Michael, my attorney, laid out the files on the table like pieces on a chessboard. Rachel Patel submitted her written account of intervening at the party. Sarah Mitchell provided the EMT report, along with photographs of the slick deck. Dr. Alina Martinez signed off on the diagnosis, emphasizing the harm caused by the delayed medical response. Evidence, medical report, 9:15 a.m., patient exhibits incomplete spinal cord injury at T12L1, delay in immobilization, increased risk of permanent damage. These documents were the foundation. But the keystone was witnesses. Michael issued subpoenas to 3 guests who had heard Tyler admit it was just a prank. One hesitated before agreeing. I don't want to get involved, but I'll tell the truth. Step 2. Align. Building the network. I wasn't alone anymore. ADA Laura Jensen met me at her office, her eyes steady. We have grounds to charge Tyler and to investigate Robert and Patricia for negligence. But be ready, they will fight back hard. David Ross, my physical therapist, reminded me daily, every step you take with those braces is living proof. Show them you didn't break. Tara Hill drilled me with mock cross-examinations, preparing me for the brutal pressure of testimony, and Thomas Reed, holding my hand through sleepless nights, whispered, "You don't have to fight alone anymore." My allies were no longer fragments, they had become an army. And for the first time, I believed I could stand against the Clarke Empire. Step 3. Gamble, taking it public. The first trial session was packed wall to wall. Reporters jostled, cameras flashed like lightning. Robert and Patricia entered, polished and poised, trying to appear untouchable. Tyler shuffled in, uneasy, but still forcing a smile. I heard a reporter mutter, "The Clarkes were Greenwich royalty. Who could have guessed it would come to this?" When I rolled in, the flashes doubled. My spine straightened, and I drew a deep breath. This was the gamble, putting it all on display. If I faltered, they would label me a liar chasing fame. If I stood tall, the world would see the truth. Step 4. Expose and force. The courtroom battle. ADA Laura began with fire. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this was no accident. This was deliberate endangerment, compounded by willful neglect from her own parents. The result? A 29-year-old woman robbed of her mobility. One by one, evidence was laid bare. Rachel described Patricia stopping her from dialing 911. Sarah walked through the oil samples and photographs. Dr. Martinez confirmed my spinal damage. My pulse pounded as I listened, torn between fear and hope. Robert rose, voice cold and clipped. "My daughter has always exaggerated. She drank too much. She tripped. The delay? We thought she just needed to calm down." Patricia, dabbing her eyes, pleaded, "I was only trying to protect her from humiliation as a mother would." Tyler mumbled, "I just wanted to mess around. I didn't think it'd go this far." I caught the jurors glancing back and forth, doubt clouding some faces. Sympathy flickered for Patricia's tears. My stomach twisted. Then came their hammer strike. The Clarke attorney produced a USB and played grainy security footage on the court monitor. From a distant angle, I appeared to slip near the pool. The oil wasn't visible. The lawyer declared, "There's no visual proof the deck was tampered with. This shows Madison may have simply slipped." The room buzzed. My breath caught. This was the replacement video, after the originals had been erased. It felt like the floor vanished beneath me. Michael leaned close, steady. "We still have a path." I remembered Rachel's words. "If there's no video, rely on science and testimony." I asked to speak. "Your Honor," I began, my voice trembling before hardening, "if this were just an accident, why did my brother admit in front of witnesses that he was just messing around? If my parents cared, why did they stop the only doctor willing to call for help? I don't need that blurry footage to prove my case. I have their words, their actions, and this body, living proof of the truth." Silence fell. Jurors shifted, eyes narrowing as they turned toward Robert and Patricia. The tide was shifting again. Step 5. Litigate. The civil fight. Alongside the criminal trial, Michael opened the civil suit. He detailed the staggering costs of my treatment, rehabilitation, and lost wages. We seek $3 million in damages to allow Madison to live independently. Their lawyer shot back. This is about money, nothing else. But then Tara rose voluntarily. I am an SCI patient too. I know these costs. This isn't greed. This is survival. The courtroom froze. Her words cut through every defense like glass. I took her hand, my throat tight. I wasn't standing alone anymore. Step 6. Restore, rising from ashes. Even as the trial continued, I felt something shifting inside me. I wasn't the silenced daughter anymore. I was a woman forcing a powerful family to answer for their cruelty. But I knew the battle wasn't done. My ace remained hidden, the piece of evidence no one had yet seen. I would unleash it only at the moment they felt safest, most secure in their lives. When the court recessed, Michael leaned down. Madison, get ready. We've only got one last move. My heart raced. I knew the final showdown was near, the moment that would decide everything, justice or the end of everything I had fought for. The courtroom of Middlesex County was silent as stone. Cold fluorescent lights washed over every tense face. Robert and Patricia sat stiffly at the defense table, their hands locked together though their knuckles had gone pale. Tyler slouched, shadows beneath his eyes, stripped of the arrogance that once terrified me. This was the final day. I knew that with one last piece of evidence, the truth would stand undeniable. 8A Laura rose, her voice echoing through the chamber. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, over the past days you've heard testimony, but today we connect every piece of evidence, from beginning to end, to show this was no accident, but a calculated effort to bury the truth. First came evidence number 1. The text message my friend sent the evening of the party. Evidence. Text message. 6:42 p.m. Madison, watch out for Tyler. He told his buddies he's going to teach you a lesson tonight. Jurors frowned, some shaking their heads in dismay. Next, evidence number 2. The screenshot from the guests' group chat. Evidence. Group chat screenshot. 7:02 p.m. Look at Madison acting again. She never changes. Laura pressed on. Even as she lay paralyzed, Tyler's friends treated it as entertainment. This reflects the toxic environment cultivated by the defendants. Then came evidence number 3, the forwarded email from hours before the party. Evidence, forwarded email, 4:09 p.m. Tyler said tonight he's teaching Madison a lesson. Have your cameras ready. It'll be hilarious. The room erupted in murmurs. Tyler hung his head, lips trembling. Finally, evidence number 4, the EMT and medical reports. Evidence, medical report, 9:15 a.m. Patient exhibits incomplete spinal cord injury at T12L1, delay in immobilization, increased risk of permanent damage. Laura's tone sharpened. Robert and Patricia didn't just fail to act, they obstructed medical help, inflicting irreversible harm. The evidence weighed heavy, but I knew it wasn't enough. I nodded toward Michael. He stood, steady as stone. Your Honor, we have one final piece previously undisclosed. He connected his laptop to the court monitor. On the screen appeared footage from a guest's phone, the copy I had secretly saved to an external drive before the deletions. In the video, Tyler gripped a beer bottle, smirking at his friends. His voice was clear. I smeared some of Dad's deck oil on those boards. Watch her slip. This'll be good. Laughter erupted off camera, and seconds later the image showed me crashing against concrete, my scream cutting through the air. The courtroom froze. A juror covered her mouth. Others shook their heads in horror. Robert's face drained white. Patricia sobbed aloud, but this time, no one pitied her. Laura delivered the final blow. This is irrefutable. This was not an accident. This was cruelty, deliberate and concealed by her own parents. Will you let them walk away? The judge called for order. The jury retired. I sat trembling, my hands quaking on my lap, but inside a flame burned. For the first time, I felt justice within reach. An hour later, the jury returned. The foreperson stood, voice firm. We find defendant Tyler Clarke guilty of reckless endangerment resulting in serious bodily harm. We find defendants Robert Clarke and Patricia Clarke guilty of criminal negligence and failure to provide medical assistance. The gavel struck. The sound reverberated through my chest like thunder. Tyler collapsed into his seat. Robert muttered curses under his breath. Patricia wept, broken. None of it mattered anymore. The judge read the sentences. Tyler Clarke, 2 years in state prison, 3 years probation, a criminal record for life. Robert and Patricia Clarke. 2 years probation, 400 hours of community service, mandatory counseling, and liability for damages. Laura nodded. Michael whispered at my side, "We did it, Madison." I lifted my gaze toward the family who had denied me my entire life. Here, in front of the law, they were powerless. Their downfall showed not triumph, but release. Outside, reporters surged, cameras flashing. The Clarke family, once symbols of wealth, now revealed as criminals. Voices carried, a storm of public outrage swelling. The very thing they feared most, their image, had become their undoing. I left the courthouse in my wheelchair, but my head held high. I was no longer the dramatic daughter they had labeled. I was the woman who turned truth into justice. And as the courtroom doors closed behind me, I knew justice had been served. After the trial, the Clarke family collapsed quickly. Robert and Patricia were forced to sell the Greenwich mansion and walk away from the community that once praised them as flawless icons. Neighbors whispered behind their backs, repeating the humiliating story that had finally come to light. The lavish parties and business connections that once elevated their status were gone, relics of a past they could never reclaim. They moved to Florida, retreating into a small, yet unremarkable home. Though they tried spinning a different version of the truth, no one believed them anymore. Their reputation was shattered, their image as the perfect family erased, and they were forever branded as villains in the story they themselves created. Tyler served his 2-year prison sentence. When he was released, he sent me a handwritten letter, shaky words, but more sincere than anything I'd ever heard from him. In it, he confessed his regret, admitting that the long nights behind cold walls forced him to see the cruelty of his choices. He wrote that he should have protected me instead of making me a joke. I wasn't ready to forgive him, but for the first time, I sensed genuine remorse. Tyler hadn't redeemed himself, but he had begun to change. As for me, I stepped into a new life. I moved into a ground-floor apartment, redesigned with ramps and a spacious bathroom. I practiced taking short steps with braces, and when I couldn't, I still worked, wrote, and taught. I took on the role of an educational advisor, guiding schools on how to support children coping with trauma. I joined a spinal cord injury support group, becoming a companion to those facing the pain I knew all too well. In the darkness of tragedy, I discovered light, a life quieter, stronger, and, most importantly, completely my own. Truth doesn't need anyone's permission. When family denies your pain, justice steps in. Justice isn't about revenge, it's about survival and rebirth. My story closes here, but it opens a larger question. If the very people closest to you turn their backs, would you have the courage to trust yourself and fight for justice? Put yourself in that moment. Would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you expose the truth to protect your dignity and your future? If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe to True Revenge Stories, like this video, and share it so others can find strength in real experiences like mine. Every day we bring you new revenge stories where justice is named and truth is finally revealed. Have you ever felt dismissed, ignored, or turned into a joke the way Madison was? Leave a comment below, because your story might be the source of courage someone else needs right now. And if you want to keep walking this journey with us, don't forget to explore our playlist, the home of the most gripping revenge stories, each one carrying a lesson, each one reminding us that justice can rise from those once thought to be the weakest.